podcast, Pop Cult Parent, and we're here for another special episode. And I'm pretty excited because it's just myself and a special guest, and I'm really excited tonight because never before in the history of this podcast has a woman sat on the Iron Throne. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are blessed with our special guest. You remember her for our last Game of Thrones episode. Alice, how you doing? Thank you for being here.
I'm doing good. I'm really skeptical. I'm glad that I could possibly sit on the Iron Throne. I'm afraid like no woman ever will.
No. You know what's funny? If you guys haven't figured out, we're talking about House of the Dragons. Mm-hmm. House of Dragon? House of the Dragons.
House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon. The prequel series to HBO's Game of Thrones. They're a phenomenal hit. You know, the series based on the books by George R.R. Martin, Song of Ice and Fire. And, you know, if you were there for the last episode, you know, these things were just, they came on the scene, they blew everyone away, and they left in a fizzle. You know, it just kind of died at the end, and everyone kind of forgot about those last two seasons. But in all, you know, even though people weren't really, you know, warm with the way the show ended, it still made a lot of money and had tons of ratings. So, you know, capitalism. HBO is like, oh, we're going to ride this horse, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And there was all this word of, you know, prequel series, sequel series. I remember there was talks of like Arya was going to get a show.
Oh, I know. I was like excited if that was going to happen, but I don't think it's not.
I don't think that's happening. There's a lot of like, you know, this was going to happen, but what we landed on was the prequel to the books, I guess we could say that.
Yes. Major prequel.
Yeah, the House of the Dragon, which goes over well, Alice, here, can you like, what is this? It's not a book, right? But
yeah, so it's like a history of like the Targaryens. So I think it's like the perspective of like a maester writing the history of. So it's a very unreliable narrator. I'm ashamed to say I have not read these books, but I do know that it is set 200 years before all of the Game of Thrones books. And it's kind of like, if you did read the books, the show is very different because it's actually showing you like what's happening in the room. Whereas like the way the books are written, it's like he said, she said. It's a little bit more like a history. So it's, you know, one sentence that the show blew up into a whole scene.
Gotcha. So it'll
be like, so-and-so fought in the hall.
So it's like a textbook, kind of like a piece of history, like this long ago, this happened in this room and this person was standing there.
Yeah.
Okay. And they made that into a show. Cool. All right.
Yeah. And it's still written by George, so it's his world, man.
Finish your books, George. Like, don't be writing all these side histories and prequel series. I mean, look, I appreciate this show. I heard he was heavily involved in like the writing room of this show, but like,
yes, he is.
We talked about this. Like, I don't think this guy's finishing these books.
No, he's chilling, man. he never will.
Why would he? Like, why? Like, you're making shows, you're getting paid. Like,
yeah, at this point, somebody else is gonna write it for him.
Yeah. But you know, for all you book readers out there, I'm sorry, but for all you non-book readers out there, whatever. Keep the shows coming.
It was honestly nice to be on the other side this time around, to be like surprised by every episode.
Well, you know what? We got a lot to talk about, but real quick, because you are a book reader and Pop Cult, we are going to spoil the season 1 of House of the Dragon. So you've been warned. We're going to spoil everything in season 1. I've never read this book or book series. Alice, you have not either. Nope. So we're not going to try to spoil anything beyond season 1, but you've been warned. But I want to ask you, can you touch on that? Like, going into this show, not knowing what's going to happen, did you enjoy it more? Did you like it more when you kind of knew what was going to happen?
I did enjoy it more. No, actually, I just still like Game of Thrones, like the original one, better, but I enjoyed not knowing what was going to happen. I did feel a lot more lost in like the time jumps, just like everybody else as a TV watcher, because you're just thinking, oh, these actresses are going to stick with us the whole time. And then you're like, oh, wait, what? We're completely flipping and changing the cast. So it just feels like it took a while to get my bearings versus like in the, in the first series, I just like knew where we were, like who was who and things like that. And it just takes a while for you're like, okay, what year are we in? Like, is that the second son? Or is it the firstborn?
Yeah, yeah.
So I felt everybody else's pain now. I get it. You're like, who?
Yeah, the first time jump, I was like, "Er?" I like pulled a whole Scooby Doo. I was like, what? What like and I didn't even know how I felt about it. I was like, what are they doing? Like, what happened last week? Like, what about what happened last week? You're gonna just jump like years into the
Yeah.
future? But we could get into that. But that was,
Yeah.
I would say, maybe a risky move, but maybe kind of good for this kind of storytelling.
Yes.
The one thing with Game of Thrones was it took its time, and at least in the first, like, let's say 5 seasons, they acknowledged like the vastness of this world, and like it wasn't just like, I'm gonna go to Dorne and talk to someone, see you later, and it's like 3 months later, now I'm in Dorne, like it's like
Yeah.
they showed like this world is big and people don't travel just like that. So maybe time skipping is kind of nice,
Yeah. Maybe the first series needed a little bit of it
a little
to
bit of time skips
better
here and there
position characters, where we needed them.
instead of just walking. They're still walking to King's Landing, like
Yeah.
episode 5. They're still walking. But hey, I'm excited that you're here. Like, I can always tell it's gonna be a great episode. So you want to just get into it? Is there anything you want to say before we get started or anything like that?
No, excited to be here. Thanks for pinging me, for calling me up, and we can get
Yes.
back on the podcast.
No, because like my wife and I, we watched Game of Thrones and we watched this series and we just love talking about it. And I asked, Nels and Shannon, but no one's, only I have watched.
Oh, well,
So
I did.
yeah, I was like, well, I know who to call. I know who to rely on. So, but thanks for being here. But we kind of already got into this, but I just wanted to ask you, like, what are your overall feelings on this show?
It took a moment for me to wrap my head that this was basically like Game of Thrones meets Succession. I was like, oh, okay.
Nice.
So
Okay,
we're
nice.
just gonna basically follow like a rich white family, and everybody's gonna bicker about like who gets the throne until Daddy Viserys dies. Like,
I did not. How did I see this?
dude,
This is
that's
Succession.
Like HBO's MO. They do Succession. They do like Game of Thrones. I mean, House of the Dragon now, and then they also have Righteous Gemstones, which is it's like the comedy version of white people fighting for.
That's also a good show too. But you're so right. This show is Succession, but in the Game of Thrones universe. Wow.
Yeah. So it took a minute because, like, honestly, episode 1, I was like, cool. Where are the Starks? And then I was like, oh, we're not going there. Like, we are not going up north at all. We are staying King's Landing. This is all about politics. This is all about that. So then when I wrapped my head around that, I was like, I'm intrigued. I'm into this. I do like the warring, this like best friends become enemies. Queen Alicent versus Rhaenyra, which I always have to take a pause on. I'm like, Rhaenys or Rhaenyra?
Yeah.
Like,
everyone has the same, like, it. I would hate what's the that Key and Peele skit where he's the gym coach and he's saying everyone's names. Like, it would just be Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra, Raconde, Roscoe, like
Aaron.
Like, they all have the same sounding names in the show.
Yes. So I mean, when I wrapped my head around that, I liked that, and it's like a double. It's like bittersweet, sort of, or not actually bittersweet. I don't know. It's like a love-hate. I love that we are seeing a different women in power that have like these titles versus in the Game of Thrones, like we're seeing a lot of like powerless women become more powerful. But and they're still powerless in some ways, but it's kind of at points just like such a parallel to our real world. And I can like talk about scenes like later on in here, but like it makes you uncomfortable. And it's like, gosh, I really hope people are watching this like understanding
Yeah.
this. So for example, in that first scene or the first kind of like prologue where, you know, Princess Rhaenys doesn't get the throne. They have this, they're like, huh, we don't know who the throne should go to. Is it Viserys or it's Rhaenys? It's like right in the beginning. And like they have this great council and they have to vote on it. Of course, they don't vote for the woman.
Yeah.
Even though she was the actual one in line. And it's
She
just
was
like,
next in line.
and you're just like, cool, cool, cool. It's like Hillary losing all over again.
Yeah, it's like a little
like,
on the nose, but not really. But no, I agree with you. Like I love. There's so many parallels to like our world in this show, and I think they're kind of beat you over the head with it, but like they're not at the same time. They're like, hey, don't you get it? And some people are like, oh, I just like the dragons. But it's like there's like a lot of like parallels to our world in this show.
yeah. There are a lot of lessons learned, and I just think like it sucks to still see, you know, women, and not only women, just like, I mean, the men get used too in the show. So like powerless people getting used in a way, and it's like, I don't know, you just want to see them rise up. And
Yeah.
that kind of happens. That comes to us soon.
That whole like just how we start the show, it's like, well, she's next in line, so you know, why are we even like voting on this? It was like, well, you know, she's a woman, so there's that. And so like, so then they have to vote on it, and that you could say that just started all of this. That
Yeah.
like if she was just succeeded the throne, there'd be no show because none of this
Right.
infighting would have even had to happen.
Yeah.
You know.
And she's the most you know, it seemed like she was the most qualified. Although the king that we did get, he didn't suck that bad. So interested to hear what you say about you think about.
Hey, no, yeah, like he's Valeris, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Viserys. Viserys.
Viserys,
We
Valeris. I
can
feel
just
like
call
this
him Daddy King or
Daddy.
something.
He, man, like he is really such a like tragic character. Like he just wants to be a good king and a good dad, and it's just like it's all crumbling beneath him. Oh, and you're dying of a terminal illness, and it's just like really sad. He wants to do the right things, but he keeps screwing it up, you know, and just screwing up the ties with his family. And then we could get into it. We open up with the
Yeah.
birth of you know, his
Kicking it
wife
off.
is getting birth. I mean, and you know, as a mom, I'm just gonna throw it to you. Like, how did you know, we haven't seen really birth in Game of Thrones like this, and just
I don't know if this is a controversial statement, but I appreciated that. Wasn't thrilled that she died,
yeah.
but just and it happens again later in the season where you see like Rhaenyra also having giving birth, and everybody else seems to be continuing with their lives and running the world. So basically like there's this melee, there's like this big tournament, everybody's having a great time while she is like on the childbirth bed, like fighting for her life. And just that juxtaposition where it's like it's a boy, and like I don't know, like that was, it's just like an uncomfortable moment where you're like, man, this woman is fighting, like,
Yeah.
and they're making decisions for her. She has no like decision making rights, like,
Yeah.
right, like the maester was like, do this, and the king was like, yeah, cut it out of her. I mean, he didn't say it like that, but it was like,
get it out of there, like
yeah, it's like, ooh, this is tough. And yes, a lot of women in our modern day and age die in childbirth. So it's like, I am sad to see it happen, but kind of happy that people are confronted with that theme, that yes, this is a bloody thing that happens.
Yeah. As a parent, you know, I have not given birth. My wife has to our beautiful children, but you know, I was there along for the process, and just like her being pregnant and then us giving birth, you know, to our children, her giving birth to our children. It's like the world, the media does not prepare you for like what really goes down with pregnancy and like what it all means, and all the energy and time and effort, and how anything can go wrong. And this is a very dangerous thing. And even like you said, in our day and age, it doesn't always turn out well. And back then,
Mhm.
it's just like, well, all right, we'll start pushing, and it's like, you know, and then they're just making the decisions. That was such a powerful scene where they're just making the decisions for her, and then when they start like performing the C-section without like her consent, it's just like, oh my god, like it's tough to watch, you know. But like I agree,
Yeah.
I'm glad they put that in there because yeah, like that's how it was and kind of how it is now to a degree, you know.
Yeah.
Like not everyone
Yeah.
has a decision in this process. And I'll just say it, I think you know, like we try to not go too political on pop cult, but I think the show is clearly a pro-choice show.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
they are pro whatever they're trying to say. I think it's pro-choice.
Yeah. I think so. And I think it's also like bringing to light that sort of it's always juxtaposing like men going to war, but then also like the way women go to war. And I think they even say it in the show. It's like that is our battlefield.
Yeah.
And so to kind of bring that to light is like pretty powerful. And again, I'm hoping people are watching and kind of
I hope you're
taking
listening,
notes.
everybody. Stop, shut up, listen. You need to watch it. No, but
Yeah.
one thing that I didn't even really consider, you know, I'm a man. I got my privilege, you know, so I go about moving out about life, not always seeing things that you know affect women. But and I know we're skipping forward. I had like all these bullet points, but the conversation's so good, so
Oh,
whatever. We're skipping ahead.
I have so much
When
to say. Yeah.
when Otto is talking to Alice, Allison, yeah,
Allison, yeah.
Allison, and he tells her like, if Rhaenyra becomes queen, like she's gonna kill you and your kids. And he has like no, like he's just saying it. He doesn't know. I mean, it could be true, but he's just saying it. But then I thought, like, man, in this world, like you could die just because of whose kids you had, and like that,
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter. You could have been like the nicest queen, princess, whatever, but because you had this person's kids, you're gonna die, and then your kids are gonna
That's
die.
yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely true of the world. I think like now you brought up Otto, and I'm like, oh shoot, I have more thoughts on Otto.
Well,
We
hey,
haven't
go
even
go. Hey,
gotten
go
there.
ahead. Go ahead.
It's
It's your
like
show.
before that conversation where he's like, she's gonna probably kill you and your kids because she's the next in line and you're a threat to her reign. It's like also, bro, maybe don't speak for future queen. Like you don't know. I don't think Rainier would have actually done that. So
No, I don't think the show
that's
reads
like
that.
another
Yeah.
Daddy Otto messing up everybody's stuff. But like, just to rewind a bit, because you brought up Otto, I did want to touch on, and I don't know if we want to talk about it now, but the girl dads in this show.
Oh yeah,
There
go
are
on.
multiple.
Yeah. Let's go.
So it's like you've got Otto, right? The worst. He's like, "Hey, daughter, love you." There was like a touching, beautiful scene actually, at first when there was like some sort of love and affection happening, and then he's like, "And then I want you to go to the king's quarters," and like,
Yeah.
and
Oh
I'm like,
man.
like jaw drop. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's not okay, Dad. And then we have our king who lives for forever, which made me laugh every time he was still alive. I was like, I thought he was dead.
Yeah, he definitely like it's oh, I'm trying to think of a movie. I feel like there's a movie or something where like there was someone dying and they were like decaying and they just get oh, like the fly. He's like the fly.
Yeah,
And like every
yeah,
like time he's like Jeff Goldblum, like every time you see him, he's just worse and worse. Like,
yeah, yeah.
like like
Oh my
falling
God.
apart, like his nose is falling in his soup. He's like,
Oh, that was just like really tough to watch. I was just like every time he was just getting grosser, I was like, please die.
yeah.
Just I don't want to see you anymore.
Just give him his milk of poppy, whatever you guys have him drinking, and have the slow, long sleep good night. Because good lord,
Yeah. But even though he was just really tough to watch in those last couple episodes, he was a decent dad to
hmm
only, I'm gonna say, Rhaenyra.
yeah,
His other kids, like what he like didn't even care for them. But he believed in his daughter's capability and continued to believe that she was the best choice. and did tell her that big secret of Aegon's dream and like the Song of Fire and Ice and stuff like that. So just like seeing that in this world where dads don't believe in their daughters, or they only see their daughters as like currency to, you know, put marriages together.
Yeah.
It's like a big deal for him to be like, yeah, my daughter will be queen. She is the best person for this job. And like to continuously have to tell people that's what he wanted. Like every episode, he was like, you guys, I've said this once, I'm just gonna say it again. It's Rhaenyra. Like
yeah, that's one thing that kind of bugged me. It's it's like yeah, and I get it. We have no show, but they're like, "Are you sure? You sure?" Because like, you know, you got all these sons right here. He's like, "No, it's Rhaenyra." Like, all right. We'll leave it alone. And then they're like, "Now, before we all leave, are you sure?"
Sure, yeah.
And no, yeah, like he really believed in her and he loved her, and I think I like his character because he is a flawed man, but if there's any good trait about him, he loved his kid, the child that he had with his true love. He loved that kid with all his heart, and he wanted her to be the queen so much that when her children don't look like they should belong to the father, he's like, I don't see what the problem is. Like everyone's like, look at them.
Yeah.
Their dad is black. He's like, I don't see what the problem is here.
Yeah, I liked that. He was like, just let go, guys.
Yeah.
But
they look like Michael Jackson's children. He's like, I don't know. We're fine.
And then our third girl dad, I think, is Damon.
Okay.
And he's not great.
No.
He like basically left his first kids for like Rhaenyra at the mid-season when they got married and stuff. So it's like, I think only one of them got a dragon.
Yeah. Well,
he was
you know what? I think since we're getting into this, and you brought up Damon, we'll bring up favorite characters, some of your favorite characters. But what I wanted to say about Damon, I don't know what his deal is.
Ooh, yeah.
I really don't like. Sometimes he seems like he's conniving. He always seems like he has a plan, and like you can't fully trust him. But then sometimes you see this like, man, I really want to love you, but I'm like not capable of these feelings. So the best I'm going to do is stand next to you and like kind of look sad, you know? So I really don't get, not that I don't get him. I find him really intriguing because I don't know if I can trust him as a character.
Absolutely not. We cannot trust him as a character. No, I think that though he is really interesting in that he's the second son. So I feel like there's like these three phases that we see of Damon, where in the beginning, he's obviously sort of vying for that throne. He's like the antagonist. And I just feel like he's just second son, I don't know, syndrome, where he's like, I could be better. And I'm gonna use force and might. And
look at me, I'm strong too. It's like, but you're not the king.
He's just weaseling his way. He's like, okay, so violence didn't work. Like starting a war didn't work. Maybe I can start this rumor that I hooked up with your daughter, my niece.
Oh man, yeah.
Then that didn't work. And I'm also just like, I don't know if we want to touch on his impotence in like that first phase where you're like, this guy he's not okay.
Yeah, like no, let's do the Damon dive. Like what do you think his deal is? Like what is up with him?
I feel like this is like a book thing. Maybe I should have read the books. I think that he in the beginning wanted the throne, and then he just lost his drive to fight for the throne, and then that's when he got married and he moves, to I don't know, Italy. I wish I could tell you the town, but
he moved somewhere.
He went somewhere else and just like flew dragons other places, had two beautiful daughters, and was like a decent dad. I think he did like a little homework with them. And his wife was begging, like, let's go back, let's go back. And I think he wanted to live in this retirement for a while until his first wife dies. And then he's forced to go back into the world of, the Game of Thrones. But I don't know I think his just motivations change when he goes back to Westeros. He's back in it again. Like he's back to being this dark Daemon. And I do think he really does love Rhaenyra. Like I do think you don't? I think
no.
I think they have like
I'm sorry, Paco. You're reacting to my facial expression. It's because she's his niece, and so I'm just like, he loves her as much as an uncle could, I guess. But no, I think he does care for her. I think he cared for his first wife. Well, wait a minute. Was that his second wife? Because then he killed his first wife.
Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, he killed his first
wife.
Gosh, just to get like, but
wow,
he did that when he was still trying to get the throne.
Right. That was just darker Daemon. I don't know.
Oh, that was a rough scene. He played it so like he's like, oh hey, how you doing? And she's like, well, you're back. I don't see you. And he's like, oh, you be careful on your horse. And then
I like that she joked about the impotence too. But then when he goes to Italy with his second wife, I guess, and they're like having babies, I'm like, are we just not going to talk about the fact that he can now perform? Like, oh, all right. Like that's the time jump thing where I was like, wait a minute.
Maybe his therapist told him, you need to stop you need to stop trying to be your brother. And then he's like, oh man, and he ran home like, hey, I'm changed. I'm a new man.
Maybe that was it. But I think like we at the very end and jumping to this season finale, I think we got him back. I think we have Dark Daemon back, and I think we have like he is a Targaryen and he leads with blood, fire, dragons, and that's who we're gonna, I think we've gotten the return of this dark person.
I have this thing like I'm a dog person, and my thing is I always tell people, you know where you stand with a dog. You walk by a dog on the street, it's either going to wag its tail, want you to pet it, or it's going to growl at you and bark at you, bite you, chase you. You know where you stand. There's no questioning where you stand with a dog. Cats, you don't know. It's like, oh yeah, pet me. Oh, that feels good. And they attack you, So I feel like Damon's like a cat. Like you don't know where you stand with him. You don't know where he stands with he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to support you, and then now I'm going to choke you. So that's but I find it really interesting because it's like, how is he going to is he going to betray people? Is he loyal? Like I think he's one of the best characters in the series.
Yeah, he's like just that real is he like the Dennis Rodman on like the radio? Because he's crazy.
But he's still good, right?
He's like he's really good to have on the team. And like, do you
you just shake your head every game. You're like, oh damn it.
I really hope I got my sports.
No. As to get his 20 rebounds, you're just like, oh, all right.
So he's crazy, but he's loyal to Rhaenyra. I do think he's loyal to his family. Eventually. But he's like, if he was on the Alicent team, we'd hate him. But since he's on our team, which I'm assuming you're on Team Rhaenyra.
Oh yeah.
We're all on Team Rhaenyra, I hope. If you're on Team Alicent, like, who are you? So, but because he's on our team, I'm good with him. Like, we're good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna ignore that he's Uncle Daddy. Like, I'm just gonna ignore
that's always like, it's funny when I'm watching this show and like I'll be like, oh man, this is a good show, and then in the back of my mind, you're like, you all are related to each other. This is gross. Y'all are gross people, man.
So much incest that they completely like glide over, and I'm like,
no,
no.
I know you didn't read this book, but was that just the Targaryens thing? Were they just like, oh yeah, cousins, brothers? Like,
yes, it was totally a Targaryen thing.
Oh man,
it was, and like the first Targaryen to conquer Westeros came, and he That's why their symbol is like the three-headed dragon. It was three Targaryens at the like forefront of the conquering of Westeros that united the whole kingdom. And he did it with his sister wives, like literally sisters'
God.
wives. So they were both his
God.
wife, both his, and also his sisters. And that was the beginning of the Targaryen dynasty.
Oh my God. It started, well, they built the foundation and the rest of them kept the traditions going.
So I was just, yeah, it's tough. There's just like so much more. So where are we in this, like the season that we're even talking about? So we have Rhaenyra. We haven't even gotten to Rhaenyra versus Alicent.
Yeah, no.
Like best buddies turned like
frenemies, hate each other. But okay, because we, no, and just like the conversation's so good, so we kind of jumped around, but that's fine. I just want to ask you real quick, like you kind of touched on it, but like the time skips. We can spend 5 minutes on this. Yes or no? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm pro the time skips.
Pro
the casting up, because I definitely don't want to see. I guess I was just like, it worked with the first Game of Thrones because that whole book series happens with a certain amount of time, but like you definitely don't want to see like a 25-year-old actress trying to act, I don't know, 14. Like it's and then kind of age up. So I was okay with it. What about you?
This series is like anti like 90s high school casting when they have like 35-year-olds oh yeah, you go to the prom, like
the Dawson's Creek casting.
Yeah, none of that.
I guess I did also have the only thing is like they were just really choosy with who they were recasting. So like Damon gets to be completely on the show as like all these age ranges, and the king does too. And so I was like, I guess Damon's not aging.
Yeah, that was I don't know why they decided to do that, because I thought the actress that played young Rhaenyra, I thought she was great. Like I was like, man, she's gonna carry the show. And then they're like, bye. Like, like she was gone.
I was bummed.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people were. But then I think the woman who plays older Alicent is killing it. I think she's
she's great.
Yeah, I think her and the gentleman that plays Valeris, I think they're the best two actors on the show. Like just what she has to like her, and it's not subtle, but it is like in her performance, she has to like be frustrated, confused, angry, like she knows she's being manipulated, but she's like, I know you're manipulating me, but I'm gonna play the game because I have to get to this point, because there's so many levels to her performance that I think is just like kind of been overlooked. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, she's really good. The actress, I do have moments where I do sympathize with the character, and I think a lot of moments where I sympathize with a lot of different characters, and I think I can find something good in most of them, except maybe Otto. But I think like I have a hot take. I have a hot take on Alicent.
Yeah, let's go. Ooh, Alicent, hot take. Where?
And I feel like book readers, because they know more than obviously you or me, and if they're listening, they're gonna be like either duh or no, you're totally wrong. I think she's a lesbian.
Really? Okay. Well, you know what?
I know I'm laughing, but I'm like, had a big girl crush like on Rhaenyra.
You know what? In the beginning, yes, I saw it, and I thought that's what they were going. It's like they were like, "Oh, we're just friends in the summer sun, learning ourselves,
like laying on each other."
Yeah, right. And then it's all of a sudden like, "Oh, we're growing as women and learning our bodies." And next thing you know, like, what the hell, But I definitely could have saw that in the beginning. I think she leans in hard to like being the queen later on in the season, but I thought that's what they were going for in the first couple episodes.
Same too. I thought that they were going for that. I also, the other part that I think like might defend my perspective is that she also doesn't have a wandering eye. Like obviously she's married to this gross king, but we never see her like take a peek at Kristen Cole. We never see her have her own desires, and I think a part of that, there's like many reasons for that. I think she's just completely sexually repressed. I think she doesn't believe that women having any kind of like sexual pleasure is possible, or like is like kind of appalled by that, as evidenced when Rhaenyra goes to like the sex pleasure houses
Yeah.
and there's, you know, how dare you like maybe have sexual relations with your uncle, but like I think she was a little bit more shocked that like she was exploring her sexuality and like
Hmm.
then she lied to her. So we can talk about that too, but like I think Alicent,
Well,
she's a
why don't we just get
lesbian.
into
I think
that?
she's the Will of from Stranger Things.
Oh no, she's
Just kidding.
not.
I don't
Oh,
know if
she's
it's
the
that bad.
will. Yeah, she
Will is
kind of is
bad.
the
Will is
will.
bad.
She's kind of the
Poor Will.
will. She just kind of, yeah. She. Everyone else is out there living it up, and she's
Yeah,
like,
everybody
well,
out there is living it up, finding their love, the love of their lives, and she's freaking getting taken down by like
she's.
gross,
Oh man,
gross
she's
decay, and it's just not a good life for her. I can see why she's
no.
mad. I can,
Yeah.
but at the same time, she did go after her best friend's dad. Like she started it,
Well, okay,
but
all right. We'll get into it. Let's get into the Allison versus Rhaenyra. Like, let's just get into it because me and my wife, we've talked about this dynamic of this relationship so much. Like, yeah, I agree with you. I think there's some animosity towards Rhaenyra, and like you're out there just being a girl and figuring things out and exploring, but I'm playing the rule. I'm playing the game. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and you're a princess, so you should be
yep.
more cordial, than even I am. And so I think there's some kind of like hostility, animosity, and jealousy
Oh,
to that.
so jealous.
The with her, like, yeah, it's like, and I don't know, I get it in the show. Rhaenyra is like kind of upset with the whole Alicent and her dad, but I'm like, Rhaenyra, like, I think it's pretty clear she didn't have a say in it. It's not like it's hard because she probably could have been like, no, father, I'm not. And what is Otto going to do? Like, get in there and like throw her into the room and like shut the door. But
No, I think in the show, the only thing I know about their age is they might be like 14, 15 when these first two like
mhm,
episodes. So
yeah,
they're like teenagers.
yeah. So I think the show does a great job of like she's in this world where she's a woman of what's nobility,
Yep.
but like she has no say in her
Oh yeah.
agency as a person. And I do think that the show kind of plays with it. Like, Otto was just like, oh, it'd definitely be so nice if you go hang out with the king, like,
I love his
and
accent.
I don't know, that's not how he sounds like at all. Oh, daughter, it'd be nice if you, and I guess she could have been like, no, I'm not doing that, Dad. Like, no,
She
no.
couldn't. She had no choice. No way.
Yeah, and so Rhaenyra feels betrayed, but I'm like, yo, are you that? You don't see that she didn't have a choice in this matter, so maybe
That
you should be mad at your dad instead of being mad at her.
you bring up a really good point. I didn't even think about that. I think that just speaks to Rhaenyra's like selfishness at the time. She's just Princess Rhaenyra. She is like all teenagers. The world revolves around her,
Yep.
and she can't think outside her, outside what is happening to her. So there's no way she's gonna have that kind of like empathy.
Yeah.
But you're right. She should have like been like, obviously, my best friend's not really trying to screw my dad.
I'm not gonna lie. If I was in the same predicament, I'd be like, yeah, mad at my best friend. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You're not gonna be my step parent, like, so I can relate. I get
Yeah.
it.
She does exactly what any other teenager would do in that situation.
What's just your take on just like the relationship and just the focus on, these two from young girls to women in the show, and just,
Yeah.
I
I
feel like
loved it.
all their controversy was caused, and it's not because they wanted it.
True. I definitely think they're just like these two people that are being swirled around in a hurricane that is totally out of their control. And I really like that they made them best friends in the beginning, because then it just makes all that animosity like even stronger, just like more intense and stuff. And then that halfway reconciliation felt even more just like, oh, I do want them to be friends again. And then it's like, no, they're never gonna be friends again. So I just really, really love that this whole show, again, George brings us this show that is this fantasy that is breaking against the traditional fantasy of usually you have your hero that's like overcoming something's got a little bit of magic, maybe a Merlin character, and then they fight evil and evil is vanquished. No, this is a fantasy show about two women that have created different families, and there is a internal civil war
Yeah.
between these two different families, and it's at the head of it all are these two women that used to be best friends.
Yeah.
And I mean, have we seen a story like this?
Not that I can think of. Not It's very like Shakespearean, and like
Very Greek. I love
yeah, it's
it's
like a
very
Greek tragedy. It's like, oh, these two friends and now they're mother and daughter, and now
yeah.
they hate each other. But
I was gonna say I also love the juxtaposition of what kind of mothers they are, especially now
mm,
that we're talking about the pop cult parent here. So we've
yeah.
got like parenting styles. It's like Rhaenyra surprisingly has got subscribes to that gentle parenting. I think
hmm
because she had a good dad, she is a good mother, and like ends up having so many kids. It's like she has this very guiding light aura about her. She's not cruel. She doesn't
Yeah.
force them to do too much, like, overbearing. And then, but her kids are good kids.
Yeah. No, they are.
Allison got the worst litter of the bunch. She's just like, oh, like the old, like, it's so funny. I was also watching with my husband, and we're both like, which one's the eldest? So, like, but until the dude got eye patched, like, we were like, which
Because they both act like they're just little brats. Yeah,
little
yeah.
brats? And then I had to keep telling him, I was like, eye patch is the second son.
Yeah. Even though he acts like he is going to be king one day, he's the second son.
Oh yeah,
But
we got to talk about that. Yeah.
no, yeah, I think you make a good point. Like Rhaenyra is just this, like, she has this soft touch as a mother. Her son is like, oh, you're so great, and I'll never be like you. And she's like, oh my goodness, my poor son. I'm not great. I'm just a person. Just trying to make it in this crazy world we live in. You'll be good one day. And he's like, I love you, mom. I love you, mwah, son.
Yeah.
And then Allison, I kind of love her dynamic. She's like, I think it was Eamon. She's like, hey, shit together. Like, like
Yeah.
you're gonna be king one day, so you better toughen up. She's like just kind of
Yeah.
like very hard, very like no BS type of parent.
Yeah. I liked it. I mean, it sucks that she got like such psycho children, but when in that scene where she's interviewing this maid and she's like telling her basically your son raped me, and she doesn't even blink and have a moment of disbelief. She totally believes this woman
Yeah.
telling her that, if that was Cersei,
Oh yeah. Oh
Cersei
yeah.
would have been like, not my son, take her to the dungeons.
You
Like, my
must be
son would never.
mistaken. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But she would definitely know. She was like, she totally did it. But like Allison at least is aware, and she's like, paying this woman off, and then she's like, I
Yeah.
believe you. And then she goes finds her son, and she literally, that I remember in the scene, she goes, you are no son of mine. And I
hmm
was like, oh
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like how Michael Myers of your kid to just be like, your son did this. She's like, yeah, that sounds like something he'd do. Just like no like remorse or
yeah,
she's like, this is on brand. I'm really. This happened to you.
sorry. She's like she's like these Targaryens. She's like, I'm not a Targaryen, but
I was married into this family, so like I have nothing to do with it.
yeah. So there's those moments where I'm like, all right, Allison, like thumbs up.
Yeah.
Give
No,
her a
and
little thumbs up.
I really, man, I really love just like I love to see Alice, the actress, act for Allison on screen, because like that scene when she tries to stab Rhaenyra,
Yeah.
like everyone's like, man, what a crazy person. But it's like when you see everything that she's been fed and what her father, with the
Yeah.
small council, whatever, and what she sees happening, she's like, okay, you see, like your daughter is out there in the brothels, like everyone knows, and he's like, oh, it's fine, it's and she's like,
Well,
is no one paying attention? And she like, so you can understand why she would go crazy in that moment. And then her son gets his eye slashed out, and
oh
everyone's
yeah.
like, well, children will be children,
Boys will be boys.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. Can we go back to that episode? Because there's definitely things in that episode where you're like, oh, this was a good episode. So, but also makes you so bad. So, yes, Allison, obviously, I think she's also super pissed going back to like Rhaenyra's like obvious sexual explorations where she has a side dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
He,
Yeah.
she is full on, not even trying to hide it, has 3 kids with this guy, which I was loving.
Yeah.
Loved that for her. Like I was like, oh my God, she like found love.
They both had they're like, hey, this is the marriage is for show. You do
Yeah.
your thing, I'll do my thing. We'll have dinners. And then as long as we're both here when the lights go off at night, I think everything's gonna work out.
We're co-parenting, sort of like
yeah.
and like he's like, yeah, I'll be the dad of your children that are not mine. But we're talking about Lenore Velaryon, by the way. I was like looking at the character's name. But yeah, so Rhaenyra has this affair with Harwin Strong for because the time jump looks like many, many years. So she's obviously like kind of not being cautious. Like it seems like everybody knows this. And so again, Allison again is just like, does nobody see?
Does no one care?
She's like, why can't I? It's like, why can't I? It's like, honey, you can. You can too. Get your own night.
I'm playing by the rules. Look at this man. He's falling apart. Yeah, I love you, Alessandra. Kiss me. She's just like... and she's like taking care of, oh, my king. My love.
She stood by him, man. I was like, wow. She's
she
really
did.
this man a sponge bath.
She was and like I think she did fall in love with him eventually.
Do you think so?
I think there was love there. I think it wasn't been her first choice. For me, you ever hear like you hear when people have their what is it called? Not traditional. Their arranged marriages.
Yes.
And they kind of learn to love each other.
Yeah.
That's what I got from their setup.
Okay. But not like she was like in love.
No, it wasn't like, oh, my moon and stars, whatever they, she was just like, oh, this is a good man. He's a good father. I'm going to make the best of this. But, if she had it out and she thought she could make it, I feel like she'd leave in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think so too. I think she definitely had to have that stiff upper lip though, whenever he was, summoning her to his bedchambers, and we get that scene where it's like her and him gross together, and then Rhaenyra is obviously having the time of her life. Like
Rhaenyra's out there living it up in like on Bourbon Street of Westeros, and she's with her father. Would you like to see my carvings? I have a model of Westeros. Look, I've made this one myself. It's just like, oh yeah.
Did we all just turn Team Allison? Or we have just
no, but like I think that's what makes Game of Thrones as a series so good, is because you have the people you want to win, but you understand everyone's motivations. And no one does anything in Game of Thrones, and I'm just saying Game of Thrones as like a whole kind of like IP, where you're like, why did that person do that? Stannis burned his daughter alive, and it was horrible. But for that character at that moment in time, why he did that. We weren't happy he did it. Everyone was, the tyrant. We were all rooting for you,
That was a tough throwback, burning daughter.
it made sense for his character at the moment, and I think that's the great thing about this series, this IP in general.
Yeah. There's always moments where you can really sympathize, or you get their motive. Exactly what you're saying. You get the motivation there.
You get why they do it.
Yeah, I just got so many more notes. Where
are
we going to next?
Okay, so I think we touched on Allison versus Rhaenyra Sunday. So we got that. Why don't we go into what do you think makes this show its own thing and not just like a copy of Game of Thrones? What makes House of the Dragon its own show?
I I mean, I kind of said at the top but that it's the succession of this world,
Hmm.
and I like that it's not copy paste of what we got previously, where we do have all these characters in so many different locations, and there's this prophecy, and there's this like, big journey war coming. I think like it's adjusted, it's like same but different. It's nice to just have be stuck with one family with hints of other characters from other families. And I kind of hope the world expands a little bit, but that we just stick with the Targaryens. I do think that having, and I think Game of Thrones did it too, because they definitely pegged a lot of women versus women, but like I think the themes of what they're showing, the pregnancies, the like labors, and these women who were once friends and now they're enemies, and but they're also getting used in different ways and manipulated. Like I think that's all very different from a little different from Game of Thrones, and I like it. I have a couple pitches for the world. I think we can get a Downton Abbey Game of Thrones.
Oh,
I think
okay.
we I think we should
Nice. I like it.
like should we get like a Harry Potter Game of Thrones? Like I think we
Hey,
can expand the world. Just
I would love like a dragon school in Harry Potter,
how
kind
to
of like
Train Your Dragon.
welcome to Dragon School. It is, there's a prophecy and some kid with a scar.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
So I like it. I'm okay with expanding the world. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, when the show first started, how do I explain this? I was like, I don't know how I feel. Like I was like, this is entertaining, but the best way to put it, I remember when I first watched that first episode of Game of Thrones. I mean, the guys playing like Ned and Rob, they felt like of the time, and they felt regal, they felt like kings, and I felt like I was watching like the world of this world of kings and knights and whatever. And when the first episode of House of the Dragon, I felt like I was watching people cosplay Game of Thrones,
Yes, I
you
kind of
know? And I was like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know about this show. It's like I feel like I'm
Yeah.
just watching people wearing white wigs pretend
Oh,
they're in Game of Thrones, and the show grew on me, and like I think it just progressed and got better. But it one thing, it's not even a criticism. I was hoping to see to make the show stand out. And maybe because you read the books, you could touch on this. This is 200 years before the Game of Thrones, the original series, and I felt like there's nothing that distinguishes the time, other
uh,
than a couple little things. The only thing that was, Rhaenyra and Allison are they're by that tree that has the faces on it, and I think Catelyn says there's not in the original series. She says that there's not many of those trees left, and like one of the
mhm.
last ones is in Winterfell. So I was like, oh well, yeah, that famous tree. I guess there's more of them now, and there's more dragons. But other than that, it doesn't feel like this is like 200 years in the past.
Totally. Yeah. I think that it's super subtle, but it's probably like that's just like the arc. No, I was gonna say like the architecture, but I'm like, is the sept built? The sept is built. Like they have the dragon pit that is like a fully functioning dragon pit, but in the Game of Thrones, it's like a ruin. But that's it. You're right. It's not
Yeah,
like they're like discovering iPhones from
yeah, that's what I wanted. I was like, I wanted the Westeros like equivalent of like the iPhone. Like, can you believe that people used to text with dragons, or
yeah.
or like instead of ravens, they used to send rats or so, like
Or
something
like
like
just
that.
even seeing like the sept or like the King's Landing maybe being constructed, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is before they built that tower.
Exactly, and I just felt like they didn't really, and I would like to see more of that moving forward. I do like. I'll agree. I think one thing the show does good is like it's smaller. It's just the family. It's this family's issue.
Yeah.
It's not like this war and this battle and this threat from beyond the wall, and it's just this family's kind of like enter struggle, and I think it just shows that people just want good characters to root for, and to
Yeah.
watch. You know, we battles are nice, dragons are nice, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, people just want like dynamic characters that they can watch.
Yeah. I will have like a bone to pick a little bit with this one, and it's because I do read a lot of fantasy. Fantasy is when you read it in books, it kind of can, depending on the author, you can kind of level out that like gender equality, or even like have characters that are LGBTQ and just like maybe have them be those heroes. And we have a lot of like women that we're rooting for in this world, but like ultimately it gives me dread to watch the show because I know that they're still creating this patriarchal society, and nobody's gonna, like, these women are not gonna win. The gay character is not gonna win. Like, and that just is like, oh, this is like not fun to watch a show where you're like, okay, this is the world I live in.
Yeah.
I don't want to like, can I get like a version where like
Yeah.
they
That's
vote for the women? Like,
that's tough with
it's just a
prequels.
reminder, like, oh, bummer.
It's like, oh well, I guess it's gonna end up like it did in the, no, that's tough with prequels because you know what's gonna happen to these characters, and so how do you make that journey interesting? Not everyone sticks to landing with prequels. I'm usually not a big fan of like prequels or prequel series just because of that. But I don't know
Okay.
if you've watched Better Call Saul. I feel like
Didn't.
okay, so I almost
Breaking Bad gave me heart attacks. So I was like, but I'm sure it's really good.
No, it is. It's a different type of show. There's definitely some Breaking Badness in there, but they stick the landing in a way because they just made it about the character, and I think that's
Yeah.
what this show can do. It's like not not what's going to happen isn't what's interesting. It's like how they deal with it that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me bring up. Sorry, I'm going to bring up my notes.
I
Is
want
there
to get
any?
to,
What was that?
I was gonna say I wanted to get to Kristen Cole.
Okay,
This
so
this
here, so yeah, we're talking about we're going through like let's go back to some characters, and you want to talk about Kristen Cole. Like,
so
go ahead. The floor is yours.
our knight that is our eye candy from the beginning, because you're watching the show, you're like, all right, what are we here for? Like, at least that's me, where I'm like, what's the romance here? Who's the Jon Snow? And we get introduced to this Kristen Cole character, and he is valiant. He is a good fighter. He beats Damon in that tournament. He tells Rhaenyra that he has like this, becoming this King's Guard is like the highest honor anybody in his family has ever gotten to. He basically was like, I'm the first person in my family to go to college. Like, this guy, like,
Yeah,
that's his, you're like, oh my God, this guy's adorable. And so watch the show, and Rhaenyra picks him. I think they obviously have like an attraction to each other. They think they're like kind of have the hots for each other. And then they end up hooking up. It's Rhaenyra's first time. I have questions for you. Obviously, there's parts where after they consummate their lust for each other, he then does like a fun proposal where he's like, run off into the sunset with me. You don't have to be queen. You've told me so many times you don't even want to do it, and it's such a burden. Like, let's run off and like make this a fish. And then she's like, no, I am the heir to the throne, and like, you're obviously not good enough to leave for the throne for. So, like, and then he psycho switches.
yeah,
So I want to know what you think actually caused him to switch. Because these are the conversations I've had with my husband where we're like, what do you think like did it?
yeah. All right. I think like he's been sold this idea of what justice and loyalty and being a knight, and like you
Yep.
said, the first one in my family to go to school, and it's like, oh, love, and I love you only as a knight could, and he took this serious vow, and Rhaenyra's just like, oh yeah, well, let's see what happens. It's Friday night. I got some wine, and I think what broke him is her nonchalantness. Is
Yeah,
that
nonchalantness. Oh my
about
gosh.
it? She's just like, he's like, we could run away and there, I'll take you to the other end of the world and love you. And she's like, ha, ha, no, what are you, crazy? I'm gonna be queen. Like she's like, oh,
Yeah.
she's like, oh, you poor thing. Like, no, 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 no. Like,
No, no.
that's not what we do here. Like in Westeros, people go out, they do their thing, and they go back to work the next day. Like, and I
Like,
think that just broke him, and he's like,
yeah,
and he just
totally.
lost that there. But I'm so over this guy, man. I really am.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's like, are you that naive? Like, did you really think?
Like
I mean,
he's like our male Allison.
kind
He
of, yeah, yeah, yeah,
he has this like high horse. He's so righteous and he has these vows. And I think we're on the same page. Like, I think he's more mad that he broke his vow to be this like chaste knight and then she rejects him. And it's like, oh my God, I freaking like gave up who I am and my integrity for this woman and she doesn't care. And so I think like he's just another person that's casualty of like a selfish Targaryen. Like
yeah, and
she's just like, I'll use you, whatever. And why
yeah,
can't you just be my side piece?
yeah, and she's not, she doesn't walk away from this squeaky clean. But it's like, you didn't have to break your vows, dude. You could have like played it straight and like, oh, my queen, I could not
Oof.
do such a thing.
I think I don't know though. Like he could. Do you think he could have rejected her?
She,
He
oh,
was really hesitant.
yeah, it's not ideal, right? It's one of those things, talk about like our world today. It's like, being placed in a situation where like, can you say
Yep.
no? And like, if you
Yeah.
say no, are you going to be safe? Like, what if he's like, oh no,
Yeah.
Rhaenyra, I can't. And she's like, well, now you have this over me and I can't have that. So like, she could have him killed, or so it's like, yeah, like maybe he couldn't say no. But I just feel like, are you that naive? Like the way he's handling this whole thing, I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. You're salty. I get it. You're mad. This is not ideal, but I just feel like he's not handling it well.
Yeah. No. He's so naive. It's yeah. Oh, poor baby.
Yeah.
Poor baby Kristen. And then he just loses it and like becomes this like pretty murderous person like several times.
Yeah.
Like I was like, damn, smashing this guy's face in at a wedding.
At a wedding. Like,
At a
this is the
wedding.
queen. This is the future, like, Queen of Westeros wedding. And you're like, I'm just gonna bash this guy's face in during the reception. And everyone's like, well, that was a Targaryen party if I ever been to one. And
Classic.
classic Targaryens,
And then at another point, he smashes this other guy's like in the
Yes.
council meeting into this like circle, like on the desk, and kills him on the spot. I was like, wow,
And everyone's like,
wow.
like, hey, everyone, just calm down. Like, I don't know. I'm really over this guy, and I'm really interested to see what happens with him. I have a feeling like him and Damon might get into a little tussle.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
I'm hoping for that. He wasn't in the like the later episodes, so I wonder if they'll ever kind of get back, like get kind of fight each other again.
Yeah, but you know what? I do. I want to touch on before we wrap up. We got a couple more things to talk about. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you about the last two episodes of the show. Oh, we had the
Ooh, oh
season
my,
finale, but I really
not
do
enough
think the
time.
last. Yeah, I know, right? I really think the last two episodes play as
Yeah,
one long episode, and just that whole, what happened. I all I want to say is the second to last episode when the king dies. I personally got a lot of January 6th vibes, like a lot of
okay.
like transition of power being,
Yeah,
disrupted, and like these whole institutions and foundations that we keep the country running, keep the world running. Like it only takes a small group of people to like collapse all of that, and just you know,
yeah,
I thought it was really
that's really good.
I was like, okay, showrunners, I see what you're doing. I just want to get
Yeah,
your, just that whole dynamic, like that first to last episode.
yeah.
What'd you think about that?
I that was like that's a really good point. Just that like it takes so few and there's like the internal people, and you're right. Like that, I think we feel like Allison when she's like the king's dead, and then her dad's just like, okay, set in motion, said plan. And she's like, what? Why didn't anybody tell me?
Yeah.
She's just like, I didn't know about this. Like, and again, she's out of the loop because
Mm-hmm.
she's a woman. And if she was a dude, Otto would have included his son in the
Yeah.
plans. But that was wild. I think that even like, oh, I just laughed when it was like the hunt for the son that didn't want to be king, not Eye
Aemon?
Patch. I
Aemon?
think it's
Is that
Aegon. I think it's
Aegon?
Aegon.
Yeah.
Eye Patch is
I
Aemon. So I just thought that whole like we have to find the heir is really funny. I kind of got a kick out of that, but also, I mean, he's like a horrible, horrible person, and I was just like, why don't we just let him die? And then I think it was also interesting, like obviously the second son, Eye Patch, like he had an opportunity to maybe like kill him, but he's just a little more strategic than that. I think he's gonna play the long game and not be the one that actually like probably kills his brother. But I also thought it was interesting that there's like these two sort of these the family is split in two, right? But even within those two splits, they're even internally at war. Like
mm-hmm.
Allison is not always on board with what Otto is doing, and Eye Patch is not loving
Eye
their
patch. I love how
brother,
you
and
keep calling him eye
so
patch.
it's like constant. I know. I don't know. Eye Patch, and then it's just constant. And then even on the Rhaenys, I'm sorry, Rhaenyra side, we haven't even talked about Rhaenys. She's my fave, but Rhaenyra side, it's like that episode where it focuses on her and Damon goes dark. Like there's also internal, like some cracks in the glasses.
Yeah, like I'm gonna touch on what you said, like when she comes in there, she's like, the king is dead, oh, I guess we need to call Rhaenyra. And then Otto's like, all right, team, everyone knows their positions, everyone knows what to do. We
You
we
know the
practice this,
drill.
the drill, people. We practice this. And yeah, I think you're right. If she was his son, he would have been like, look, when the king dies, these are the moves we're gonna make. And she I found it kind of confusing. I didn't understand what the race to find her son was. She was looking for a son and so was Otto. And I'm like, okay, well, you both kind of, as far as I understood, you both kind of wanted the same thing, just your dad didn't tell you the
Yeah.
moves he was making. So maybe you can shine some light at that. I didn't understand the like the urgency. She's like, I gotta find my son first before my dad
First.
does. Yeah. I was like, why?
Yeah.
You want the same
I
thing.
I agree. I think that they want sort of the same. I think, though, because Allison has a history where her dad manipulated her, she's like, I will not let him sink his claws into my son. If anybody's going to manipulate my son, it's going to be me. So I think that's what she was thinking. And she's like, I'm about to put my son on the throne, so I need to give him a pep talk.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. What's your take on, well, just before we even get there, but yeah, that episode, just the swiftness of like a coup and just taking over, and then all the like lords where they're like, hey, I know you guys pledged to Rhaenyra, but I mean that was so long ago, right? Right, everyone? Like it was a long time ago. Things change, and like people are like, yeah, like okay, yeah, we to the new son, Aemon or Aegon, and then the people who didn't pledge to see them be killed. And I was like, man, it only takes a few people, and
Yeah.
it was kind of scary.
Yeah, it's scary, but I feel like so real. And also, again, you can draw those parallels, to again, their January 6th comment where, people, if you don't fall in line, you get fired.
Yeah, and then the scene where is it Aegon, the oldest son, who gets crowned? Is that his name?
Yeah, Aegon.
Yeah, when
No,
oh
it's
yeah, it is
funny.
Aegon, because this whole mishap, not mishap, but misunderstanding comes because at the end, when Allison hears the king's last words, she's like, Aegon will be the one who saves
Yeah.
the realm or whatever, and she's like, oh snap, and she
Yeah.
just like runs like, everyone listen up. But when he's being crowned, and
Oof.
then the I don't know if I forget her name, the lady who was supposed to be crowned before
Queen. Oh, the queen that never was,
the
like
queen
Rhaenys.
Rhaenys, when Rhaenys comes out with her dragon,
That was
and
amazing.
that
That
was,
was so
oh
good.
my god, such a good, like, that's why you watch Game of Thrones, for like things like
Yeah.
that. What did you make of when, everyone thought like, well, this is it, guys, she's gonna kill all of us, and she did it? What was your take on that?
I love that scene. Rewind just quickly because Aegon, who didn't want to be king, like at the very end, he really was doing like a touchdown dance. Like he
He
was
was,
like,
yeah. he,
I was like, oh no, he likes the taste
he's like,
a little
yeah,
too
let me get a little.
much.
He's putting his hand behind his ear, leaning into the
Yeah.
crowd, firing
So
t-shirts into the crowd and stuff.
yeah, he's like, yes, I am king.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Rhaenys came from the dungeons with this dragon and killed many people, and did not light it up, I understood why. I was like, she does not want to start a war that is not hers. And she says it later. She's like, this is not my war to start. She could have ended it right then and there. I don't think she had like maybe necessarily picked a side yet. I think she was just like, I'm about to go to my summer home in the Hamptons and like figure out whose side I'm on. I'm still
Yeah.
undecided. So I think that she made a big power move where she showed that she like obviously disagreed with what was happening, the swift coronation of a king that shouldn't be. And I think she's like, yeah, I disagree with you guys. And I think she also was like, I am not team Allison. Like Allison did her best to try to like win Rhaenys over in that episode. And yeah, you can't really win people over when you lock them in their rooms and
Yeah.
don't give them access to their dragon. So I think she's like, not necessarily on your side, but I'm not about to start a war. That's all. That's how I read it.
But then her engagement with Allison is like, she's like, you poor fool, like you
Yeah.
you could have been winning this game the whole time, but you're just doing what everyone tells you to do. And I don't know if that's going to come back in any way. Like, I don't know if she left a mark on Allison, but she's like, keep doing what these men tell you to do, but like, you have everything you need to win the game,
Right.
and
Yeah, I think Rhaenys is just like she's still just a little salty that they didn't pick her, and she's like, ugh. And then you got these other young guns just messing it up, and
so, and so that episode ends, and then we get into the final episode,
yep.
and just, and we'll this will lead into our wrap up, but just like, what are your thoughts this episode? A lot of things happened this episode.
Oof.
Just, what were your thoughts the last episode, the season
I
finale?
I thought it was like classic Game of Thrones, where we're just like really focused in a slow way. I was like kind of slow, like we're just kind of focused on Rhaenyra and like in this war room, but I shouldn't have said it slow. Like she had an entire birthing scene that was like so intense. Now that I'm looking back on it, I think she grieves one for her father. She has to
Mm-hmm.
grieve for her stillborn child, and then later, big spoiler alert, guys, she has to grieve now for her youngest, or not youngest son, actually, like her youngest son born to Daddy Strong. So she's gonna go dark. Love that. I like a
Mm-hmm.
rageful, like bitter queen that I'm rooting for, not the Cersei kind. And I mean, we can't talk about this episode without talking about that dragon fight. Like,
Yeah.
just not expected. As again, the delight of being a TV viewer, not a book reader. I didn't see it coming. I thought he was gonna get away. I was like obviously rooting for this little kid, and like I thought it was so interesting. And like he just kind of went into that little canyon, and I was like very much How to Train Your Dragon. And
Mm-hmm.
then I don't know. I was just like I thought he was gonna get away, and then he didn't. And I was so sad.
It's like, we should have seen it coming. This is Game of Thrones. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like in the back of my head, I was like, oh, this kid's toast. He's gonna die. But I'm like, oh, maybe he'll get away, maybe. But I will say the dragons in this show, like, we got our
Ooh.
Taste of
Oh
Dragons
yeah.
the
Oh
last
yeah.
show. Like, the dragons in the show, they're showing you why they were a force to be reckoned with. and it's a world where, it's a parallel our world. Like Game of Thrones was Dany was the only one who had nuclear weapons. Now in this world, it's like this soft war and like this cold war because everyone has these nuclear weapons. Everyone has these dragons,
Yep.
but some dragons are clearly stronger and bigger than
Bigger.
other dragons.
I know.
Like, so I think that's an interesting dynamic that the show is doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that whole scene, that whole like kind of dragon chase scene, it just looks really good. It was done really
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
Just the scale of the
Intense.
dragons. Can I ask you something? Because my wife and I were talking about this, and maybe your book knowledge, maybe you'll be able to shed light on this. So it seemed to me that like they both kind of lost control of their dragons.
Correct.
Luke,
Correct.
and for me, that whole situation was Aemon was, my dog could beat up your dog, and then his dog ended up killing everybody. So do the Targaryens really have like a control on dragons, or is this just like they kind of know how to like be a dragon whisperer and no one else knows how to do it?
Correct. They do not have a true control over the dragons. They just speak High Valyrian, which is what the dragons respond to, and they can tell them, yeah, like Dracarys, and like, I am your not master even, like I'll just be your rider, and one dragon really only picks one rider. But I think it's even in the first episode where the king is telling Rhaenyra that we are the only difference between Targaryens and everybody else is that we have dragons, but nobody else knows that the truth is we cannot truly control the dragons. If they knew that, we would be in trouble. That's why they are like the dynasty, because people really think like only the Targaryens can do this. No, if anybody can speak High Valyrian, get up on there, but they make it seem like it's only the Targaryens. So no, and I loved that scene because I was like, yeah, they lost control. They both lost control of their dragons. And then Eye Patch, actually, I just like the easiest way to identify him. I feel really bad now. Eye Patch just actually looked like he felt bad.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Oh, so he's not a psycho.
I think he lost his eye, and his brother who probably doesn't care for is now the king, and the kid who took his eye is there, and he's like, oh, I got this big dragon, I'm going to show everyone. And he wasn't expecting that, because I think even when Luke's dragon blew fire at Eye Patch's dragon, and I think Aemon's kind of like, no, listen to me, because the dragon's like, oh, you blew fire, oh, it's on now, and I agree with you. I don't think he wanted that, and he was like, but I also don't know, not that he didn't want that deep down, but now he's like, oh no, I did it, and now we're definitely going to war, and it's because of me.
Yep.
Like we might have went to war, but now we are going to war, and it's my fault.
Pretty much, yeah. I think like he lost control of his dragon. Dragon lit it up, bit chomp chomp, and then and then his face is a mix of, oh, I killed my brother.
Yeah,
not brother. Sorry, right?
No, his nephew.
Uncle.
His nephew.
Nephew.
It's so
weird. Nephew. Sorry. Oh my god, these Targaryens. I killed my nephew, and I started a war. Yeah. And oh crap, and that's tough.
Yeah.
So I try not to have sympathy for Eye Patch, but I was like, yeah, dude.
It was a great episode. And then you were talking about, Rhaenyra having to mourn her dad and then mourn her stillborn child. My only issue with this episode, and talk me down, maybe I'm just like a dude who doesn't understand. I thought it was kind of a tropey that, pregnant woman gets bad news, and the bad news, I'm going into labor because of bad news.
That's a total trope.
I was like, really? Like, really?
Now?
Yeah, like right now, like you live in like this world and you haven't got any bad news besides, I don't know. I just felt that was kind of silly. Like, and I get it. You had to get there.
Yeah. Just to be clear, not in her control. It's the writers that are creating this trope. Yeah. Not that Rhaenyra.
It's like
Can't handle.
now, but yeah. But no, that episode just has so many great dynamics in it. Like one, shout out, I love that table. That war
Oh,
table where they
I
light it
definitely.
underneath with, oh my gosh, yo. I told my wife, I was like, I want that table. Like,
Yeah, I was definitely said out loud. I was like, wow, set design really had fun today.
yeah, like that was one of the coolest things I've seen, like prop wise and like a Game of Thrones like
Yeah,
IP, like super cool. And then Damon really I found interesting this last episode
oh yeah,
because he's like, oh, okay, well, obviously they killed my brother, so time to go to war. And he's just like making all these decisions for Rhaenyra, and she's like, and everyone's like, oh yeah, well, Damon, what do you want to do, Damon? Like, yeah, everyone listen to Damon. And she's like, aren't I not the queen?
yeah,
Like, and everyone's like, well, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, I guess you're the queen. So even them who have dedicated, their loyalty to her still have a hard time, like, oh yeah,
yep.
this woman's in charge.
Like we'll just do whatever her husband says.
Yeah, yeah.
But
it,
yeah, I mean, you bring up like a really good point. I think in the season ahead, like season two, we're gonna get possibly that, that crack in the marriage or where the Damon that always wanted to be king, he found this other way. He married Rhaenyra, which I still believe he really likes her, loves her. So, but now he just gets the benefit of being the king he always wanted to be.
yeah,
And I also would love in the future to see a fight between him and Eye Patch because I think they're
yeah,
very much the same, like second sons, wanting the crown, studying, like actually kind of being probably could be better kings than their older brothers. Yeah.
yeah. And then there was when Damon kills the sea snake's brother,
Oh yeah, that was
when
great.
he's like, do I have to say it? Her children are bastards. And then you King's like, I'll have your tongue, and Damon cuts one of the like top 10 like moments in like Game of Thrones history. Cuts
That's yep.
like from his like eyes to his nose off, just like part of his head. And he's like, I'll have your tongue. And Damon's like, he could keep his tongue. It just cuts that top part of his head. I
Vicious.
I I was not expecting that. I was like, oh.
It's like another moment where again I was like, if he's on Team Allison, I'd be like, he's a monster. But I'm like, because he's with Rainier, I'm like, yes.
But when he did that, Eye Patch was like, I see you. I see you.
Oh
Game
yeah.
recognized game.
Yes. Yeah. Eye Patch was like, cool.
Yeah. He was like, oh yeah, nice, nice. So I can't wait to see their interaction. I really agree. I agree with you. Like whenever they interact or fight or talk, I think it's gonna be really interesting. But I want to ask you, like, at least I took it as Damon did a lot of like emotional gymnastics this last episode because he gets mad at Rhaenyra,
Yeah.
he talking over her, he starts to choke her. But
Oof.
then I feel like when they get the news that Luke has died, he I feel like he's very quiet and he's
Yeah.
very subtle with her, and he just takes her to the side. And
He's very tender.
yeah, he's very tender. Before he was just like not
Yeah.
there, not emotionally available. And Luke isn't his, I think that's not his biological
No, it
son,
was
right?
it's like his stepson.
Yeah. And so I just want to ask, like, what do you like? And that's why I think Dame is so interesting because it's
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I don't know where he stands.
Again, it's like he's not a total psycho. I think he is loyal to the family that he has with Rhaenyra. I don't know how
Hmm.
loyal I feel like he is to his daughters that he like doesn't even talk to anymore.
Yeah.
But like I think he is very much loyal to Rhaenyra. I think he's always had a soft spot for her and loves her truly. So I think that he understood in that moment. Like, yeah, he was definitely a monster throughout that. And we got Dark Damon again. But yeah, at the end, I was like, wow, he really did that right, where he's like about to give her some really devastating news. And he does seem like tender, and it does seem like just even though they're both wearing black and looking into the fire together, you can see that symbolism of like the Targaryens, like these two people are going to enter their villain era.
Yeah.
And it's about to be blood and fire. And so I think that it's kind of cool to see sort of like this. I don't want to say, I was gonna say Jay and Beyonce of like of
So
like
they're
a
not
dark,
related. So Jay-Z,
yeah.
so as far as we could tell, Jay-Z's not Beyonce's uncle. But
I would like to see that in the second season of just this power couple just
yeah,
like taking people down.
yeah, and it's funny because I really related to what Rhaenyra was saying, how when everyone was like, all right, let's go get on the dragons. Dame was like, we got more
Yeah,
dragons, let's burn King's Landing. And she's like, look, like, if I'm gonna be queen, what I'm gonna be queen of the world of ashes. And
totally.
I I felt like there was a moment where she was like, it's not, this isn't worth it. Like, we control Dragonstone, even though they took the throne from me, we still have like a lot of say, and we
Yeah,
stand pretty good. And I felt like there was a moment there where she would have considered kind of giving up the throne.
totally.
And I tell you what, I relate to that. Like, as I get older, I'm very like, yo, man, I'm just trying to keep the peace. Like, my
Yeah.
peace is very important to me as I get older. So there's so many moments where I'm just like, it's not worth it. And I'm like, yo, is that crazy? Like, do you think she would have given up the throne if Luke wasn't killed?
I think so. And I think that's what makes a good queen. Like
Hmm.
that she was like, it's not about me.
Yeah,
It's about the realm. And
yeah,
in order to keep the peace, I will give it up.
yeah,
And that's what makes a good queen. Like I thought that was like a really good moment and just showed us like what she could be. And then now we're gonna get something else.
yeah. Now we have no choice. Now she has to be Danny. One thing I do hope that they do and touch on, which I think season 8 of Game of Thrones tried to do but failed at, I got the sense that there's like this kind of like Targaryen anger, or like underneath it all,
Madness.
madness, and I wonder if they're going to touch on that in this series.
I definitely think so. I think we're gonna get some pretty crazy Targaryens. Like I do think that the oldest of Alicent, Aegon, is probably could be a mad king. We'll see
Hmm.
what happens there, but yeah, there's definitely like you can't have all this inbreeding without just
Oh,
crazy.
this is pretty. Oh, hey, welcome to Westeros. It's just like just Damon playing the banjo on his dragon.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh my god.
But hey, we're coming to the end of it all. I had all these notes, but like, you just brought up so many good points that I
I
kind of like
know, same.
crumbled
So
them
many
up and
notes.
threw them out the window. Like, we're freestyling it here. But I did want to ask, do you have any favorite moments? And I know we touched on a lot, but anything that just like, man, I love this show.
Yeah, so I love the show when Rhaenys comes out of the ground and her dragon and just like tears apart that whole sept. That was like, yes, we have Game of Thrones. This is like jaw drop action. And then this scene pisses me off. So I'm really hoping that there's some sort of vengeance. It's when Eye Patch steals the dragon from
Ah, yes,
Damon's
his daughters.
daughter. So that like the daughter was like, that was my dragon to claim. And it was her mother's dragon. And this little kid, like with all his white privilege, comes up and takes her dragon. And for those people who weren't taking notes or weren't watching the show, like this is a little black girl. And
Yeah.
and I was like, this is a crime. And I'm not okay about this. I hope
Yeah.
she gets a dragon and I hope she freaking lights it up. And then he goes ahead and also the season finale, he kills the little boy, like Luca. I'm saying he's a little boy, but like, wow, those two girls, they have reasons to kill, get
Yeah.
back at this guy. So
It,
that scene was, I was like blood boiling.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think the show's also talking about like, there's a little hint of like white privilege, and there's this lineage of
Totally.
these people of color, and Rhaenyra marries into this family, and her children clearly aren't of this family, and it's like, well, no big deal. And it's like, there's no like denying it, like their father is a black man and these children are not black. And it's like, well, it'll be fine. We'll work it out. And so it's just like this kind of like stepping over these people of color and like what, their lineage and their family name and their line.
Totally.
And I think the show is like you said, it's like, hey, is everyone paying attention? Because we're kind of like we're tapping on the glass, but we're not ramming it down your throat either.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to bring a little bit more of that into the second season, because it was like, yeah, this is a whole Black family that is rich and they have a navy that you need,
Yeah.
but they're definitely getting shafted
Yeah.
at certain points in the season. Yeah.
But one moment, and I'll just, because we're wrapping up, but one moment, and I'll bring up, because you brought up like a great big moment, a small moment that I really love. It's a small moment. It's when Otto goes to, is it Dragonstone? To basically tell Rhaenyra and Daemon, like, hey, Aemon's king, you guys need to bend the knee.
Yeah.
And he's like, where's Rhaenyra? Princess Rhaenyra. He goes, I was waiting. And she comes out in her dragon, and they're on that like kind of that stone bridge.
Yeah, like a great wall.
Yeah, and she flies around Otto's like army and his guys.
Yeah.
Gets off her dragon and then walks through their ranks.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yo, I told my wife, I was like, that is so badass.
Yeah.
Like, she just like, you're not gonna touch me. I'm gonna walk through your army.
Yeah.
And then like then you'll address me. I just like I love that.
Positioning her dragon behind them so that if they make the wrong move, the dragon's there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like not even worried about getting like touched by the I thought that was such a badass moment. I love that moment.
Yeah, that was a good scene too. This show is great. I'm so looking forward to what's next.
So let's we'll wrap it up. What are you excited for? And I know you said you had maybe some not maybe theories, but some pitches for season 2. So do you want to go over a couple of those?
Well, I think we're gonna enter a full-on war. And I don't know what that looks like yet, but I think we're gonna get a lot of dragon fights. I think we're gonna get no reconciliation between Alicent or Rhaenyra. I hope there's no more big time jumps. Like, I don't really want to see Eye Patch have kids. Like, I don't, like, maybe he'll get married, but I don't really want to see like him age. I mean, who knows? I don't know. But I think we're gonna full on war. But I think it will be a long one.
Yeah.
Like, I think it'll be like, I don't know, 20. I feel stupid that I didn't read the books and I'm like completely just predicting right now, but I think like I don't really want the cast to change. I think I'll say that. Like, I want us to stick with the cast, and I want to see a good war, and I do want the world. I personally just want the world to expand. Like, I do want to see a Stark thrown in there. I do want to see like some people from other families kind of getting in the mix.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see the world build. I want to see how war affects the region. Like, what does it mean for the people in Dorne, or what does it mean for the people in Winterfell, and where their loyalties lie. And because dragons need a lot of food to the people in the people who betrayed the Starks, who ran the
Frey.
They had to give up all their fishing and all that. I want to see that kind of dynamic play into this.
Different geographies again. Let's
go travel. Let's
travel a little bit.
But before we get out, one moment that I can't believe I forgot to bring up. I want your take on it. Now we know improvised scene of Daemon handing the crown to his brother as he makes the walk to the throne. Just what was your take on that? And one just beautiful scene, just like
because wait, is this when the king is like super
when he's really sick?
Yeah, and he's got to come back and say that Rhaenyra is going to be the queen.
Rhaenyra's like, you gotta make this dinner. He's like, oh, I don't know if I could. Father's so tired, and he's like, you gotta make this dinner, and he sucked, and like that just walk from his chamber to the throne room. Great scene. But when Daemon hands him the crown that he dropped, apparently that was improvised. Like, I just want your take on that. What do you feel about that scene?
I thought that was beautiful. I do think there was like genuine love between them. So I think it was nice. I was glad that Damon's attempt to be king kind of just died out. And then with the years, because the time jumps give us that, they give us like the wisdom of time. So now that they get to be brothers again, I liked seeing all those scenes where he's like a little bit more sympathetic. And it's like, yeah, my older brother is the king. I don't need to fight this anymore. And there is a love there. I also liked that he would really actually did grieve for him. I know there's rage grieving, but I thought his grief was real for his brother. Like,
Yeah,
there's real love there.
Such a good show, man. As we're wrapping up, this is what HBO does. They make water cooler shows, and I think we're
Yeah.
losing that in the age of streaming. But somehow HBO still knows how to make things that on Monday, the next morning, everyone's talking about at work. People are theorizing and sharing theories, and I love that. And I think we're losing that in this day and age, but they still know how to bring it.
Yeah, it's like the only thing that is close to Stranger Things. It's like too few and far between. Like, we need more. I need more shows to be obsessed with.
More dragons. But I think that's a good place to wrap up. Alice, thank you so much for being here.
For having me. So sorry I'm so sick and I sound nasally. Glad I got through it.
No, thank you for being a trooper and pushing through for this episode. It's always a pleasure to have you on here. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Justice for those daughters. I wish I knew their names. I feel so bad. Damon's forgotten children. And looking forward to some true good dragon fights. Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Pop Cult Parent. Just thank you guys for being here. Please follow us on social media at Pop Cult Parent. You can go to our website, which is www.podpage.com/popcultparent. Please email us, like and subscribe. And as always, join the cult. See you later.